Hello, and welcome to the Create a Life You Love podcast. I'm your host, Chantel Cox. My purpose is to empower and lift up others who know in their heart they're meant for more. More joy, more impact, and more passion. If you're ready to make a radical transformation and create a life that you love, then you have come to the right place. Let's do this. Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of the Create a Life You Love video podcast, where we get to connect with people from all over the world to share tips and strategies designed to help you on your journey. So I'm your host, Chantel Cox. I'm an author, a speaker, a transformation neurocoach, and certified life purpose coach who helps women connect with their unique purpose and permanently remove the blocks that have been holding them back so they can step into their full potential and live an aligned and fulfilling life of impact. Quick reminder, this is being streamed live, so those of you with us, feel free to put comments and questions in the chat, and then we'll get to them as it makes sense in the flow of our conversation. If you are catching the replay, just use hashtag replay, and we will be sure to respond later. If you are listening on a podcasting platform or watching on YouTube, just reach out to us on DM if you have a question for either of us, and we'd be happy to help. So I'm super excited to be here today with ToriAnn Perkey. ToriAnn is a ToriAnn is a recruiting guru and online business management expert. As co-founder of IntegrateUp, she helps people who want to work online get hired by visionary CEOs looking to build their dream teams. She believes that every person who wants to deserves the freedom and flexibility to build the life that they want while working remotely. So hello, ToriAnn. How are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm so excited to be here, Chantel.
I am very, very excited, and I know there's several people in our audience excited too, and on both sides of the spectrum. They might be looking to be kind of that VA getting connected to the CEOs, and they might be the CEOs looking for some help.
Awesome. Well, we love here at IntegrateUp, we love to help both sides. We feel kind of like the matchmaker that just sits in between these two needs, and it's a really fun place to watch as we bring people together.
I love it. I love it. It's perfect. So tell us where you're joining us from.
Yeah, so I'm in Orem, Utah. It's a little cold here right now.
Nice. Well, very cool. I did my undergrad in Wyoming, so I think I've made it to Utah just slightly over the border one time. So ToriAnn, tell us a little bit about your journey. Like, what's led you here?
Yeah, so I think a lot of times when people ask me that question, the underlying part is, how did you figure out how to work online? Because that's now what I do. And so my journey is, I got married really young. I was 20 when I got married, and we had kids pretty fast. So by the time I was 30, I had 4 kids, and they were all 2 years apart. And we were doing really well. We decided to homeschool. I was a homeschool mom long before homeschooling was, pre-COVID homeschooling, right? So I've been homeschooling, and we still homeschool. So it's like 18 years or something like that. And so everything was kind of going pretty swimmingly, and everything was pretty good. But I tend to take a lot on because I like to be busy, and I like to run things, and I like to have my hands in lots of different places and be really kind of on top of a lot of things. And on top of that, we have a lot of interesting mental and some needs in my home, like some mental disabilities, some mental stuff like that. And like anxiety and depression. And so we're like managing all of that. And of course, being someone who likes to take a lot of things on, I decide a summer when my oldest is 12, youngest is 6, that we're going to do a family play. We're all going to join a play together, I love musical theater. It was going to be a great plan, but immediately my 6-year-old thought this was a train wreck. In fact, most of the kids pretty quickly were like, I don't know if I want to do this, so it was really stressful. And then right as soon as we were done, we thought it was a great idea to go to Disneyland and do like this 2-week massive vacation. We're going to go to Yosemite. We're doing all of this stuff. And the stress from that summer had been building and building and building and building. And we are in Yosemite, and my son, who has some anxiety and some other issues, decides to run away in the middle of Yosemite. And there's signs everywhere that say, beware the bears, don't leave the trail. And I am flipping out. And that was the moment where everything just crashed for me. And I remember sitting in the parking lot in Yosemite and just bawling. Like I was just such a mess. We found my son, but we come home and I just completely shut down. My body was done. My mind was done. I didn't mention, but we have a bunch of food allergies, and I've been cooking from scratch during the trip and before the trip. Disneyland, when you can't buy anything, is really hard. And I stopped cooking, and just like chips became a food group. And I was just like, fine, just so I really kind of shut down. And that was probably the lowest point in my marriage as well, because we were just so stressed. And it was just really, really hard. And coming out of that experience, my husband and I found ways to connect. There's a couple TV shows that made us laugh a lot. We got some help for some of my children, but mostly I started to really think about, how much I was giving to other people versus what did I need to do for me. And so I started researching, I started learning more about, finding your purpose and finding, what is my role in life beyond just being a mom. And I don't want to say it like that, because of course I feel like that's a calling I have forever, right? But what was I outside of that role? Because it was also me as ToriAnn, not just me as the mom. And as I started to explore that, I started to play with different things. I thought, oh, well, maybe I'll do a blog. Maybe I'll try like a little bit of life coaching. I had all of these things. And in the process of that, discovered this online working world. And someone I had hired to help me do something was like, hey, will you come work for me and just do this side project? And I was like, sure. And that morphed into like helping her run the company. And I was shocked. I didn't know that people got paid online to do the thing that I'd always thought I would love to do if I wasn't staying home with family. Like it's suddenly like the ability to work and do something for me could align with me also being home and wanting to homeschool my kids and stuff like that. And so I started doing that. That turned into me meeting my current business partner. After a few years, she and I said, hey, let's like try something together, which quickly morphed into a version of what we have now, which then morphed into what we have now, which is a recruiting agency that brings service providers, which we both were, with visionary CEOs. And so that's kind of been my journey. And I still don't cook a ton. Like, I feel like anytime you go through a really traumatic transition like that, there's still signatures in your life that you recognize are there. And it sounds so silly to say I have PTSD around cooking, but I genuinely do. But for the most part, I came out of that recognizing that I could balance being there for my family and those things that I feel really strongly about still, and finding a really good place for me as a person. So that is my journey.
I love it. I love it. It's so timely. So I'm very curious, like year-ish wise, like when did this go down? Because I'm suspecting it was before 2020.
It was definitely before 2020. So probably, I think it's 2013 is the summer of, right? Like whatever I want to call that. And the reason I know that more than anything is prior to that summer, I had hair that was all the way down to my feet. I could stand on it.
Wow.
And I used to wear it all like wrapped up on my head. And post that summer, I cut my hair. And I think for me, that was the biggest signal that I had really decided to fully embrace me. Because I always kept long hair, because I had a lot of people in my life who were like, oh, we love long hair. And I was like, I am not a long hair person. And now I cut it, and everybody in my life had to get used to it. And I love having short hair. So yeah, 2013, it was probably 2017, yeah, probably 2017 when I really started working online versus trying to build like some little side something.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then the way that timing worked out, I mean, it just led you so you were poised and ready to go when 2020 hit and everybody went online. You're like, I
It was
got this.
yeah, for sure. Like it was so interesting that, when March 2020 happened and everything shut down, my partner and I just kind of gripped the desk metaphorically and just sort of hunkered down, because nobody knew what was going to happen. And we thought for sure that everything was going to kind of fall apart. And we were just really, really cautious. But instead of it being a downside, it turned into this boon. And I was just commenting today to, I think, my husband, I just said, we were, they talk about being in the right place at the right time to ride the right wave. no one could have planned this, but
Right.
there's never been a better time to work online. And so one, it was great for our business, but anybody who wants to work online now, it is not too late. This is the time if you've ever wanted that kind of flexibility.
Awesome. And I know that flexibility is key. And I know that so many people in our audience can resonate with your story because as women, we do tend to give, give, give. And if you are blessed enough to be a mother, it just, escalates that times 3,000.
Yeah.
And so, um, yeah, everybody I'm sure is listening to this, nodding their head, being like, yep, preach, And so the idea of flexibility, maybe pre March 2020, was still too foreign. Like it really wasn't talked about. But now people really are seeking it out and wanting to know how they do it. And so I really do want you to talk a little bit about like what should people know if they think that they're wanting to work from home and kind of weighing out the options. I started working from home July 1 and I love it, but there's definitely is a shift.
Yeah. So there's so many ways to answer that question. I like a couple things. Like what I hear in your question is partially, will you know if working from home is right for you, right? Like it's easy to want the dream. It's, I can go to the beach when I want. I can work from my pajamas in my lap, with my laptop on the couch. I could take my dog for the walk in the middle of the day. And those things are all true. So I could travel, we could work from anywhere, we could live where the cost of living is lower. So there's lots of benefits, but I think people who if you're going to choose to work from home full time, there are a couple things you want to think about and just be aware of. And you want to ask yourself, first of all, does my quality of life when I'm working away from home, is it really at a point where I'm ready to bring myself home? You know what I mean? Because I think what happens sometimes is the one looks so amazing, but we don't always take into account like, oh, what do I really like about the way things are currently going? So you want to weigh that. And then you want to ask yourself just a couple questions. For example, one, how am I with distractions and scheduling my time? Because when you work from home, you are very much expected to be able to show up and work and not get distracted by everything around you. And you are still someone who's getting paid to work. And there's that expectation. So you want to make sure you can do that. You want to make sure you have some kind of space that allows you to work successfully. And that doesn't have to be an office space. I mean, sometimes I wish when I do these interviews and I talk about this, I could turn my camera around because this makes it look, I have this amazing office space. But the truth is I'm in a basement room. I'm in a room where we have like a freezer and exercise equipment. The rest of the room looks like anybody's normal basement. I have this little tiny window that is structured to look good on a screen because this is my office, right? So you want to make sure you have something that's going to make your space. You want to be able to have some kind of space that has good lighting and some things like that. And you want to ask yourself, do I have things outside of work that socially will fill my time, will fill me as a person socially as well as otherwise. So whether that's volunteering, whether that's church, whether that's, meeting people in the park, whatever you do, you don't have as much social interaction when you work from home. You just don't, right? You don't have the water cooler. You don't have the people you bump into in the elevator or whatever. And you have to be okay with that. And you have to structure other things outside of your work life to fill those needs. And as long as you know that you'll be able to do that, I feel like working from home is a really great ideal. So let me know if I answered the question you were actually asking.
Absolutely. And I'll kind of dive into a couple of those things. I just want to remind anybody with us watching live, if you have questions as we go, just drop them in the chat and then we will answer those as they make sense. So I love that you talked about having some things outside of work. And that's important too when you do go to a brick and mortar
Yeah.
because you don't just want to do work, home, sleep, repeat, right? Like we need joy, we need fun, we need social and connection. But it does definitely take it up a notch. So this weekend, I like quarantined myself because I do actually have to go in school buildings this week, and the COVID numbers here are just out of control. So I'm like, nope, I'm grounding myself. I don't want to see anybody, stay away. So I'm like, I haven't seen a person off of Zoom in like a week. So I did get together with two friends and where it was safer and everything like that. But so thinking about those things, because it's really weird to be like, when is the last time I saw a
Yeah.
person? Because I live alone. Like, so I don't
Yeah.
even have like a spouse or kids or anybody. I'm like, no, literally, I've not seen a human being.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something to keep in mind. Um, Another really thing, like you hit on, time management and structuring, but can you talk about balance?
Yeah, absolutely. So the challenge with working from home is that you are within steps of your office 24/7. And it is so easy to always want to be on the computer, want to be working. If you are in the kind of position where you feel any kind of urgency, it can feel like it's never ending. And we talk a lot about having balance in life, but I actually think that when we do that, we do ourselves a disservice, because I don't like to call it balance. What I like to do is call it intentional decision making or intentional time management. So I believe that rather than saying, look, I'm going to try to keep everything perfectly balanced. So if I'm doing, 20% of my life here, I'm going to do 20% of my life here. That's not how life works. Sometimes work really does need all of my focus. And I need to tell my family, look, we've got this massive launch coming on, new product. I'm going to have to give 120%. And then there's other times where I have a kid or a spouse or a family, an extended family member where they need more of my time. And I need to be able to step back a little bit from work and give less there, not less than is like what I've contracted to do, or, I own my company now, so it's a little different. But as a contract service worker, like if I say I'm doing 10 hours a week, I need to show up and do 10 hours a week. But so when we talk about intentionally choosing, we're saying, okay, this is my work time, and this is when you get me, and communicating to the other parts of my life that I'm less available, even though they can come talk to me if there's an emergency. And then if I'm with my family or whatever my other choices are, allowing myself to let go of and choosing that intentionally and letting go of the work for the time being. And what that allows me to do is let go of the guilt, because I can be working and feeling guilty that I'm not doing other things. And I can be with other people and feeling guilty that I'm not working. So I'm therefore never having a good time. I'm always feeling guilty. And so I think instead of calling it balance, what we're doing is we're intentionally saying, this is where I plan to be present. And I'm not going to feel guilty, because if I say yes to this, I know I'm choosing no to that. And if you start to feel that intentionality getting out of whack, then what you're doing is you're choosing to give less to one to give more to the other. And life is constantly in flux. So you always have to be assessing that. There's been times when I've worked 40 hours a week, and there's times when I work 10 hours a week over the last 5-6 years, depending on the needs of the other parts of my life, both the money we needed to be making as well as all the other things.
Yeah, I love that. So, getting rid of all those shoulds. Like I'm working, but I should be with my family. I'm with my family, I should be working. And so, yeah, and that again is a challenge no matter what, but it is kind of intensified, especially in your role where you're running a whole company, right? And so I've got a full-time 9 to 5 and then building the side business on my evening and weekends. Um, but yeah, so it doesn't quite have the same level as what you have, right? Because if you, yeah.
Well, so I think one of the great myths around building a business is that you have to work full time to build a business.
Mhm.
Full disclosure, there are rare exceptions. I usually don't work more than 15 hours a week. Now, I get the benefits of being an entrepreneur in the sense that I get to really control my schedule, even more so than when I was a contract worker. But my partner and I are successfully building this business and we both work around 15 hours a week. And that's how we've chosen to do it. We could make our business significantly bigger if we work more. And that allows me to, and my youngest is 15 now. So that allows me to spend time homeschooling and the things that we still do. And that's different now than, I mean, if someone were to listen to this and say, well, how does she do that with a bunch of little kids? Well, my life looked really different when I had little kids. Homeschooling a 15 and a 17-year-old with 2 kids graduated is very, very different than when it was 12, 6, well, 12, 8, 6, and 4. So that's the first thing is I don't want to give, I mean, I am very, very busy because I like to be busy, but I am as busy with my, I mean, I would still say homeschooling and the things I do with that still take up more time than building my business. But we are a full-fledged, 6-figure business. It's a real business. And I feel very confident that we continue to scale and grow, but it's exactly what we intentionally are building. So yeah. And then, I have other things like, it's time with my spouse, free time that I spend time with. And then I have church responsibilities. I have a lot of stuff that are going on.
Yeah. I think that's really good. That kind of helps. Like you fill your whole circle. You don't have such a big gap that you're like, well, then I'm just going to work 72 hours a week because I don't have anything else to fill this time with.
Which I would do if I didn't have anything else, because I am kind of a workaholic. And so it's good for me to be balanced and serving and giving as well as like earning money and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. So what are maybe some common mistakes that you see for people when they want to apply and interview for online positions?
Oh, this is such a great question because we see hundreds of applications for different positions every week, right? So when I speak about this, I'm going to speak about things that I just want to say, please, please, please don't do this thing. You know what I mean? So I'll talk about kind of one at each of the stages. So first of all, we see applications that come in where it's obvious that someone dashed it off on their phone and they think they're texting a friend. They don't capitalize, they don't punctuate well. You are applying for a job, right? So you want to have a level of formality, even if you show us your personality. Exclamation points are fine. It's fine to show that you understand the vibe of the company and that they're a little more casual. That's total, especially online. Not all remote jobs have that vibe, but a lot of these entrepreneurial jobs, they do. They're much more startup energy, stuff like that. But basic, if you're asked to provide something with a link, make sure you can open the link, send it to someone outside yourself. Just check those basic things, because when we get, if I get 200 applications for a job, I'm looking for reasons to say no, not reasons to say yes the first time through. Read the job description carefully. If we say that we're only going to be accepting people from the United States and you live in India, don't apply, right? Like that's not worth your time or ours. But if it doesn't say that, then please apply, because that means you have an opportunity, because they are open to international candidates. So that's the first thing. The second thing is when they ask you to do things to show that you understand the company or whatever, spend some time actually learning about the company. I know that it can be disheartening when you're applying for job after job, and after a while you get tired, but it is so obvious the ones who don't take any time to learn about who they're applying for, because that matters. And sometimes the difference between a yes and a no as we're moving through the process is if they're a super fan, or if they're like, oh my goodness, I love their podcast, or I just saw their book and I'm so excited, to everything that, I'm a heart-centered person, just like this entrepreneur. And then the last thing has to do, we see lots of other things, but the other big one is when you show up for an interview, remember that your Zoom experience is how you are going to be perceived. Check your lighting for sure. We have interviewed people where they're so dark, I can't see their face. Not cool. If you're in a unique situation, like you have to interview in your car or you're outside, explain why and help me know that that's not normal, because that's the first thing in my head is, do they not have a place where they can work? Because this is a remote position, right? And don't show up as if you were in your pajamas. Like, this would be an acceptable way to show up, right? I don't need a suit, but I don't want exercise clothes. I don't want you to look like you just rolled out of bed. And there are people who will show up like that. And I don't think they appreciate that just because we're working from home doesn't mean that we don't want a certain level of professionalism and care. So I would say those are 3 big ones we see a lot that can definitely just kind of make the difference sometimes.
Yeah. So, for somebody that's looking at, maybe they have really good administrative skills, or really they like social media and making things on Canva and all those kind of things, what would be their next steps that they should take?
I assume they aren't haven't worked online before, right? They have these fun skills, either they've enjoyed them as a hobby or whatever, or they're doing them in the physical workspace and the Translate. So here's what everybody's a little different. I mean, some people just dive in and figure it out. They network, they talk to people, and they just kind of fall into it. And that is definitely a way to do it. It's not how I would do it, because I'm much more of a I need a plan. So a couple things. The first thing I would do is I would get kind of clear on what pieces do I really love social media? Do I think I would love to manage someone's Pinterest account? Do I just want to do general administrative VA work? That's often where people start before they kind of niche down, because general VAs tend to do a little bit of everything. And so then they get a feel for it and they can kind of niche, which is wise. Once you niche, you can raise your prices. But the first thing is, and there's multiple groups out there, but we personally adore Lauren. So I'm just going to put in a plug for Lauren Golden's Facebook group. It's called the Free Mama Club. Anyway, Free Mama Association. I can't remember the last name, but and I don't get anything from promoting her, but she puts out so much amazing free content for anyone who wants to work online, whether or not you are a mama. She specifically focuses on young moms who want to work from home, but anyone's going to learn what they need. And she has some courses you can take. You can learn a lot just through her free stuff. And she has a free Facebook group as well. I love those kinds of resources, because you're going to get working online, particularly in the online entrepreneurial space, as opposed to being a remote worker for an accounting firm or something like that, right? The online entrepreneurial space has its own language. It has its own software. It has its own just kind of things they expect you to know. And you want to kind of have at least a basic understanding of some of that stuff if you don't want to start at $12 an hour. I would want you to get to 15 or 20 as quickly as possible, 2025. And the way you start at that beginning starting rate is having enough knowledge of some basic things that you can say, yes, I know this software, I know this funnel. If you don't know what a funnel is, you're not going to work as well online, right? Because you need to know some of that stuff. So that's where I would start. And then we'll probably talk about this later, but come join. There's several virtual association specific Facebook groups, but VAs are not the only job out there. There's copywriters, there's graphic designers, there's marketing people, there's operations people, there's all kinds of things. And our group, we have a free Facebook group called Hire Up Online. People post all kinds of jobs in there. And so that's our group. What I love about our group is they're 100% legit online working opportunities. And we see 5 to 6 jobs come through a week, and not all of them are ours. And anybody who's looking can join for free. And anyone who wants to post a job can come post one for free, and just follows the basic rules, like don't be a scammer person, it's got to be a fully remote position, right? Like we're not doing anything that's partial. That's where I would get started. And then just have the mindset that you can make it happen, because there is so much online work right now, and it will never go back. It's going to stay that way. The whole working world has changed. So
yeah, I love it. So I did drop, for anybody watching live with us, I just put the Hire Up Online Facebook group in the chat, and then I'll get it in the show notes wherever you're watching it from if you're not with us live. So definitely go check that out. What was the name of you said Free Mama, Lauren?
Yeah, it's Lauren Golden is the name of her, and I think I would know her. Hold on, I'm the Free Mama. That's why I couldn't think of the last word. It's the Free Mama. Nice. I think her website's the Free Mama Movement. But anyway.
Perfect. I'll get that all linked too for anybody interested in connecting with Ms. Lauren Golden. So that's kind of one end of things. So maybe not even the other end, kind of mid-range, those solopreneurs that have been doing all the things for a hot minute and are finally starting to generate some income and looking for help. Like, what would be some starting tips for them?
Yeah. So if you have just been doing everything on your own and you're ready to hire your first VA, my first recommendation is don't necessarily hire the friend that gets recommended to you. don't hire your friend unless you already know that you're going to have a great working relationship, because that's a really great way to destroy a friendship, unless you already have worked together in like a volunteer capacity and you know you're going to be a great team and they're going to do a great job supporting you and not like trying to be equal with you. I think a lot of brand new people who are hiring make the mistake of whoever they get on the first discovery call with, right? And the person can talk about what they can do and they're so excited. And you're like, oh my goodness, you're going to make my life so much better, because you're just feeling that sense of overwhelm. What happens is you then hire that person. And sometimes that goes really well and sometimes it doesn't. So my first recommendation is when you're going to make your first hire, take some quiet time, put on some music and journal who you're looking for. And it doesn't have to be like crazy woo-woo type stuff. I mean, if you're into that, great. But if not, I mean, literally just describe who do you want to have working for you. And I'll just give you an example. When I was ready to hire my very, very first VA, and this was way back when I was doing like, I was trying to build a business teaching people how to homeschool, right? So it's very solopreneur, very small. One of the things I said, is, among other things, is I wanted someone who I knew could decorate well. I knew she had that skill. And that was because I had a vision of occasionally doing a live event. And I knew that I would need someone who could come in and help it look pretty. Well, it happened to be that one of the people I interviewed, I could see her background and she fit lots of other boxes, but I could see in the background, she had a nicely decorated house. Like I could see her mantle or something. And it turned out she was exactly in that respect. I did a live event a year later and she knew that. And so I got clear on what I wanted. So I was able to find a good person. And I avoided the people who didn't match that. I didn't like pick the first person. If someone, so that I think is just good. And talk to more than one person. Definitely talk to more than one person and talk to other people who are kind of working like you and get a feel for what they're paying people. Because you can either think, oh, I can find a VA for $10 an hour. And that's not really true anymore, unless you really are going to hire a low-level VA from the Philippines. But that's a very different dynamic. I mean, they really do cost more than what people used to say, right? And the types of skills you probably want them to do. But you probably shouldn't pay your VA $35, $40, $45 an hour either. And some will ask for that because they're also executive assistants. And that's a different thing. So I would talk to other people. And then you're probably not ready to hire someone like us yet. Usually people who hire us are making, at least 6 figures or more I mean, if you're a solopreneur who's making 6+ figures and you don't have anyone on your team, please come talk to us because you're ready to hire someone and we can help you. But otherwise, I would say you write up a job description and come post it in our group, spread it to your audience. People will show up out of the woodworks, and then just do multiple interviews and get clear on what kind of skills you want to have, so you can make sure that you know that they have those skills as well as the personality that will vibe with you.
Perfect. And then kind of the next part of someone's journey. So now they've maybe hired their first VA or two, they're clicking along, they're over 6 figures, and now they really want to streamline their processes.
Yeah. So I would say come find us, right? Come find IntegrateUp. There's not a lot of people who do what we do in the online digital space. So if you're running an online, fully remote company and you're ready to bring on more team members, we love, that is who we serve. And that's partially because that's where we live, right? That's where we've lived for years. At this point, the biggest challenge that happens at this point is people, they often have people on their team, but they're not really clear on who's in what seat and is everybody in the right seat? So a book that I love, if you're a book reader, is The E-Myth Revisited. That book really does a good job of describing just thinking about roles and then fitting people into roles versus I have all these people, what should they do? But then I would say if you are pressed for time, I mean, the process is the same. You're hiring more people, right? So you can write a job description, you can post it on Indeed, you can try to put it in a couple Facebook groups, you can send it out to your group, whatever, or you can find someone who will do all that work for you. And that's what we do, right? We meet with that visionary CEO who inevitably feels overwhelmed and just has too much on their plate. And you'll spend about an hour with us, including a discovery call and an intake call. And then 4 weeks later, you should have 3 candidates to interview, like 4 to 6 weeks later, it kind of depends. And that's all. And so, once you get to a certain point in your business, what you really don't have is time. And so that at that point, you're looking for, how can I multiply my time by hiring people to do pieces that I'm no longer an expert in? We see a lot of people who make a lot of bad hires, and they've come to us because they tried it on their own and it just didn't go well. And that's because they are still making all the same mistakes that those solopreneurs make, right? They hire the first discovery call, they hire someone that comes recommended. We work with the client to tell us what your culture is like at your company. What are it's important to you? What skills do you need? Have you thought about this? We know all the questions to ask to then vet, to make sure that they get someone who really is going to mesh with them and fit that job the way it needs to fit.
Nice. Oh, darn. Like 3 minutes ago, I had a really good follow-up question.
Sorry.
No, but that's really, I like that we were able to cover the full spectrum, because some people are going to be on here and be like, don't care. Like, this isn't my vibe. And so that's fine, guys. It's okay.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are very interested in dipping their toe in the online space. Oh, I remember what it was. So if somebody has made a maybe not the right fit hire, what might be some tips for them?
So the first question is, do you have a great team member who just isn't in the right job? And do you have things for them to do that would be a better fit? Sometimes just shuffling your people around and having a really clear conversation with a person, a very real conversation where you say, look, I can, maybe this isn't the right fit. Would you be interested in doing this? And that's assuming your company's big enough that you have the ability to, and roles to, and the money to shuffle people around. That would always be my first goal, because it's expensive to hire and it's expensive to fire, because you have to train people and there's so much involved in getting someone fully immersed in whatever you're doing. They just have to learn everything. But what I would also, and I think I won't be I'm not the first person to say this, be slow to hire and quick to fire. The truth is, having in the past been the online business manager or integrator for multiple businesses over several years, inevitably I would come in and there would be someone on the team who, in the very first meeting, the CEO would say, oh, I'm really struggling with this person and this is why. And within 3 weeks, that person would be gone. But they needed an outside source to come in and just say, is the team really better off by having this person here? They're dead weight. They're sucking up all of your time and energy as you worry about them, as you try to wrestle them to get them to do whatever they're not performing. And inevitably, that conversation is so hard. I mean, don't get me wrong, firing is the yuckiest thing I've ever done. Like, no one wants to do that. And you want to do it quickly and you want to do it painlessly, but you don't want to get sued. Like, there's just a lot of things you have to do, right? But on the other side, the weight that comes off the minute that person is genuinely not a part of the company anymore is so huge that to a person, they say, oh, I wish I'd done that months ago. I wish I had done that months ago. So don't hold on to someone. The inclination is to hold on to someone much longer than you should, and just rip the Band-Aid off. It's time to let them go. And the truth is, they're miserable too. And sometimes I think this helps. They don't know it, but they are miserable because they are not in the right spot, either because they can't do the job and they're stressed but no one wants to fail. There's no one in life who's like, yay, I get to wake up this morning and be a really bad employee, or, no one wants to do, like, that's not how we think. So they're just miserable as well. And they can feel that you aren't happy. And so this is kind of, woo-woo language, but by releasing them back into the world, you give them permission to go find a better fit for them. But they're not likely to take that route, because we are safety, we want to stay safe as human beings. So it kind of sometimes it's just a good nudge for everyone to let those people go.
On both sides, it ends up being a win-win, even though it's yucky in the midst of it.
It is. And no one likes to fire. No one likes that. So I think and then this is what I would say. Don't schedule something important for the rest of the day. If you're going to let someone go, you're going to get off that call and you're going to probably want to go process with someone else on the team or a spouse, you're going to need some space to just like work through the fact you just probably watched that person cry, honestly. And then it is going to take a little bit of time. So don't schedule your next podcast interview. Don't schedule a huge sales call. Don't plan on recording something. Give yourself the rest of the day to be sad, to feel guilty, to work through all those emotions so that you have time to do that. And then you can just jump right back in.
I love that. Definitely giving yourself that space. That's great. Awesome. Well, this has been amazing. I've loved every second of it. Is there anything else that you would love to touch on before we kind of start wrapping up?
I think the only thing I would say is unless you see in yourself personality traits that would make a bad fit for working at home, the number one thing that keeps people from working remotely online is not believing that there's enough work or that they don't have the right skill set. And I've seen all kinds of people, all kinds of jobs. There's just about every job that you do in person can be morphed into something online. Sometimes you have to be creative. So just a belief that it's possible, and if you feel the hankering to start your own business, you can do that too, right? Like a lot of these contract workers that is a business, right? You're creating your own kind of business. It's just you're going to be serving other business owners. So believing in yourself and trusting that it really can work for someone like you is huge.
I love that. And just take messy action. Just try it. Like, what if you just get something that's a do this job for me and it takes 10 hours and then we'll discuss if there's further work for you to do, if it's a good fit. Like, what do you have to lose? You make a
Yeah,
little
for
money,
sure.
you
And
learn some skills.
inevitably what you start doing is not what you'll finish doing. I mean, I started blogging and then I was a coach and then I was a course creator and a homeschool, like how to homeschool. And that turned into being like a bookkeeper that turned into being an OBM, which turned into like that journey. There's no way 5-6 years ago, if you'd said this is what I'd be doing, I would have believed you. It's been such a crazy route. So it's saying yes to the next thing and trusting that you'll figure it out.
I love that. Yes. It is such a journey, isn't it?
Yeah. And I'm not done. Who knows what I'll be doing in 10
yeah.
years? I hope I'm still doing this, but who knows?
For sure. You'll be doing whatever it is you are meant to do.
I love that.
Oh, so I love to ask all the guests if they have any daily non-negotiables.
Daily non-negotiables. I read my scriptures every day. That's really important to me. I check in with every one of my kids every day. And maybe not as much with ones. I have 3 at home, and I make sure I have intentional conversations with each one of those every day. I check in with my spouse every single day. I guess I should say scripture and prayer, but like to me, that's all kind of one bundle. I would say those are my 3. Like if I didn't do those, I would feel like I hadn't done everything I needed to do that day.
Nice. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I really talk a lot to my audience about it's the tiny little consistent things that you do with discipline and intentionality that make the big results. And so
Yep.
just focus on those and the rest will come. Awesome. I'm looking over at the chat. I don't have anything in there. Everybody definitely go to the link I put in the chat for the Higher Up Online group. Do you have a website that people should go
for
check
sure.
out?
So IntegrateUp.co, and that's CO rather than com. IntegrateUp.co is where you go if you're interested in hiring or just learning more about the company. And then and then if you join the Facebook group, you'll get links to specific job descriptions. We have a separate website for job descriptions, but yeah, IntegrateUp.co.
I know I'm going to go on there where I'm at. That will be good for me to see types of job descriptions and get ideas because other people, I'm sure, are asking for things that I'm like, oh my gosh, I could pay somebody to help me with that. Like,
you can pay someone to do almost anything for you. It's pretty awesome.
I love it. And then on the other side too, like if you're just thinking, could I work online, looking at those posts and just getting familiar with the lingo and what types of things people are wanting, what is the need, and then matching your skills and your passions with that. I think it
Yeah,
would just
absolutely.
be a very eye-opening learning experience.
Yes, for sure.
Awesome. I love it. So, thank you, everybody who is on live with us and who's listening. Thank you, ToriAnn, for coming and sharing such amazing information. Um, let's see. If you got value out of this podcast episode, please be sure to share it with someone that you know would benefit from it as well. And leaving a podcast review is also so very appreciated. And you can quickly and easily do that from any device at ratethispodcast.com/Khalil, Calyl, for Create a Life You Love. That'll all be linked in the show notes. And a real quick heads up, because two things have popped up pretty unannounced, so we're just starting to promote them. I would love to invite you to two upcoming free events, and you can get more information and register. I'll put the links in the show notes, but go ahead and save the date for this Saturday, January 15th at 2 p.m. Central. I'm doing a special live bonus podcast interview with two local women here in Wichita, Kansas. They're creating a space that hopes to empower, grow, and nurture ancient wellness practices and culture through their unique therapeutic tea blends. And they're going to do that by providing education and building community all around tea and herbal infusions. So come join us to learn more about their journeys, get self-care tips, and hear about their amazing local business. It's called Planted Tea Shop for anybody in Wichita that's interested in that. And even if you're not in Wichita, come hear what they have to say. And then Wednesday, January 19th, come join us for a free masterclass on time management. Hint, if you struggle with time management, you need more than just another set of tips, strategies, and hacks. So come learn how to actually master your brain so that the strategies that I teach you on the second half of the masterclass actually work. So got to get the neuro coaching in there, right? Okay, so again, information for those two things, I'll get them linked if that sounds of interest to you. And that is it for tonight. Thank you all so much. Thank you, ToriAnn. Yes, just wonderful, beautiful blessings. Enjoy the journey, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Create a Life You Love podcast. I would love to hear from you about your biggest takeaways. Share them with me on Facebook or Instagram at Create a Life You Love Coaching. If you love this podcast, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It's very much appreciated. That's it for now. Enjoy the journey.